Greetings, my name is Shanella and I'm going to bring you the updates of the next expansion. Now, before I begin, I have two main features to talk about. First of all, it's a podcasty kind of thing, so you can do whatever you want and keep this in the background, just keep listening to what I'm talking about, and you do whatever you want to do, which means go farm something, go attack your neighbor with a giant hammer, talk about your... anyway, that's the main feature, keep this in the background. Second of all, theorycrafting. So what I mean with that is that there is no backup on any of my words. These are just purely my thoughts. I will, however, remain as realistic as best as I can. This means that every now and then I will go over the top and say these are possibilities, but I will try and keep that to the minimum. So, let's get on to it. I'm going to be talking to you about 5 features. First of all, we have the scaling, then we have the stat squish, then we have some allied races getting into the features. Then I'm going to be talking about some vanilla service things. I'm not too big on that, but I'll cover it anyway. And then there's the extra features. So, let's get into it. Now, we are going to start off with the scaling. First of all, they are going to be expanding the zone scaling to all the zones that we have. So this means that all the zones will have level ranges with caps. Now I've got a feeling that this means we might be able to do anything on this on our 70, though it's not too certain. I'm just going to have my hopes up for it. What we do have is that the Outland scales from 60 to 80 now, and Northrend scales from 60 to 80 as well. This applies to dungeons and loots. So this means that we might be able to do all the dungeons in the Northrend expansion, in the Wrath expansion, and might get some loot from it. However, this does not mention anything about raids, so I've got a feeling these are going to be left out. However, the Outland scales from 60 to 80 and Northrend from 60 to 80, so all of it will be around about 70, which means that earlier dungeons in the Burning Crusade expansion will scale up to 70, which will give us better loot, I suppose, and we might be able to get some new interesting loot from the Wrath expansion dungeons. So there's something to look up for. Now, this will all start in 7.3.5, and of course it will introduce the new Seething Shore Battleground and Ulduar Time Walking raids. Now these are for later levels. What else do we have? Well, there was a Q&A and someone asked what will they really be doing with this, and will mob health and damage be scaled as well with the new scaling of the old world, and of course what about heirlooms. So the team is looking to make health and damage of mobs relevant to level, so this means that our gear, the gear we have, is going to be overpowering them anyway. We won't really have any challenge, but if you want you can strip yourself of your gear and have a challenge. And heirlooms are still scaled for level. That's a weird question. So, next off, we have the stat squish. Now, there wasn't too much about this. There was just a brief mention of it, and they left it kind of in the background. And as we know in the past, the stat squish left us underpowered at the start and overpowered at the end, because any buff that we got was much more significant. I mean, if you buffed us 100 DPS back in days where we did 2000, well, that's 5%. But if we do the same thing when we only have 500 DPS, now that's a whole fifth of our whole range we have, that's 20%. So you see, there's a big difference there. And the stat squish we might be getting now might be getting in the same levels, we're not sure. But what we do have is a small Q&A part where we can read through it. So, the first Q&A was, is there a stat squish? And yes, there is another stat squish. The point isn't to nerf, but bring everything in line, as we've read before. This time they are also squishing item level. Now I hope this is only going to be working on the end game, but if it does affect us, it might bring us into, well, either positive or negative meat, because it might mean we have other items which are useful, or other items which have become completely useless, or it just doesn't affect us at all. It's also possible. So the second question is, can you tell us a bit more about the stat squish? So as I said, there's definitely another stat squish happening. The team wants numbers to be reasonable and work hard to make sure old content doesn't become hard to solo with the squish. So again, as the same feature as before, as I said with the scaling, if you want to be doing something at your level, with the stat squish even, they will be leveling it up to having the average gear. The average damage, the average block, the average, you know, parry, dodge, not that doesn't exist anymore, but the average stats. And your gear is too much, so you probably have to strip down if you want a challenge. This doesn't mean that dungeons or elites or something won't be a challenge, and actually this might be something interesting we will have to look into later on. Unfortunately, I can't test any of this right now. So just keep it in mind, it's something that might be interesting, and I've got a good hope feeling on this that it might turn out something good. But again, we will see. On the other hand, with the scaling and the squish together, PvP might get some more interesting features, as back in the days you were looking for a trinket or a ring. Right now you will be looking for other items, maybe, possibly, we'll see. So next off we have the allied races. Now there's not much being told about this, unfortunately there's not much to tell anyway. I mean, we know what races are coming. There's a Void Elves, there's a High Mountain Tribe, there's a Lightforged Draenei, there's the, what is that, Zandalari Trolls, and there's the Nightborn. But we have some little bit of information about these. So first of all, the racials about them. Are there going to be any racials involved with them? And they will all have unique racials, but some aren't ready to be discussed yet. Unfortunately, we only have 2 of them which have their racials put out. Again, subject to change. So, first of all, we have the High Mountain Tauren, which, in addition to the regular options, customize facial hair, horns, horn style, horn color, all that stuff, customization. They are going to be updating customization, by the way, when creating a character, just small little detail. Anyway, what are their racials? They have the Rugged Tenacity, which reduces damage taken by a fixed amount. Now, it says 330 here, I believe that's going to change, we'll see. Then their mining skill is increased, and they mine faster. They have 1% higher versatility, and they have an ability called Bull Rush, which allows them to charge forward, knocking down enemies for 1.5 seconds. Fair enough. And then we have the Lightforged Draenei, which are the only other ones which have their specific things. So again, customization, and then racials. So first of all, they have an ability which calls down a Holy Energy Bolt, dealing fixed amount of damage to enemies within 5 yards. They can summon a Forge of Light, enabling blacksmithing, and they have 10% increased blacksmithing. They gain experience from killing beasts, like 20% more. They take 1% less holy damage, and whenever they die, they deal a fixed amount of damage to enemies and a fixed amount of healing to allies within 8 yards. Unfortunately, that's all we really know of these racials. So, allied races, oh yeah, they are going to be starting at level 20, which means allied races will be playable at 70, which is a good thing, obviously. And they work with specific classes, so everything, don't bother about classes. You'll be fine, you can play them at level 70, that's the important part. So, then we are going over to our last few features. First of all, we have the vanilla servers. Now, vanilla servers, I've never been too big on them, but I will give you a quick recap on what they are actually saying about this, and there was a Q&A about it. So, first of all, they're not really too far into the development of it. They're not even sure if they're going to be working on the same clients, or whether they are going to be using this normal subscription. They're not sure if they want to change any of the mechanics. They want to keep the experience as close to vanilla as possible, but it's too early for an answer. And a lot of other things which have to be decided. So, we'll see. We'll see. There's not much going on with it, but they have at least told us that they might bring us further into the classic server. So it is happening, we just don't know when or how. And then the last feature, which are some extra features. So raid buffs are returning, which I suppose is a good thing. I always liked them. They brought something special, but anyway, they're returning. Possibly, there's a chance it might not, but right now they are in the development and they are hopefully returning. Then there's something about PvP templates. The team likes the PvP talents, but it's hard to put that in the outdoor world. And because outdoor PvP is going to be bigger, there's going to be a lot of changes there. We'll see how it works out. I don't really know too much about it. I don't want to make any promises. But they did talk about something with the tech that allows lower players to party up with higher levels. So we'll see where this brings us. Also, the character creation, as I've mentioned before, character creation is going to be updated. So allied races are stats. The arts team is looking at allied races and are now trying to incorporate that into the older races. So more character customization is coming. For example, upright orcs and similar. The default backpack that you have is going to be upgraded. They are very close to allowing the first backpack to slightly increase. So in future patch, if you have an authenticator, you will increase your back size. We don't know how much, and there might be other things coming up. I don't know, but there's a chance that your backpack will increase in size. And then we have the last feature. Will the character slots per realm increase? And yes, they will. Once we usually had only 1 additional character slot, we now have 6. So per realm you will have 6 more new characters, which is brilliant. And that's pretty much all I have to cover. So thanks for listening, and I'll probably see you next time. Be safe. Now, first of all, I want to cover the Now, these will all have, of course, their specificational. That is a word now. They will all have their specific race things. So, race things. I'm going to have to cut this out.